Hello, everyone. This is Mark Arrow with Arrow Systems Integration. I'd like to welcome you to our third episode in a series of emerging technologies webinars that we are holding here in 2018. We're hosting these at Arrow to provide you with, you, our customers, with information on kind of the newest technologies and trends in the market, right? We realize that keeping current on technology is somewhat challenging when we have to balance that with our day jobs. And, we decided that maybe a series of webinars scheduled the same time, same place each week would be a great way to communicate a wide range of what we see as really cool topics with you. The first couple sessions that we had, this is, as I mentioned, our third episode, so we're 3 weeks into this. Our first two sessions included topics of NEC NeoFace Watch and contact center analytics. I'm not going to give you the details on those because we record the sessions and that we are posting them out to our website for playback or for you to listen into and share with your colleagues. So those are all, those two are out there. Today's topic is going to be on ArrowInsightRMM, and I'll share a little bit more about that and hand things over to Rob Yowzy, who's going to be presenting for us today and in just a little bit. We've got future sessions coming in the following weeks. We're going to cover things like IoT, Nutanix, device as a service, just to name a few, and a whole lot of other very cool, again, leading edge technologies. So make sure you've accepted the invitation. It should come through as recurring and show up on your calendar for 11 a.m. Central Standard Time every Thursday. Now, right away as I say that, please note that next week there will not be a session as we have our Arrow Systems Integration National Sales Conference. So many of us will be attending that, and our presenters and subject matter experts will be tied up for a couple days there. As I mentioned, all sessions are recorded, so if you want to go back and listen to a prior session or take the session you're participating in here today, pass it along to other colleagues, you can certainly do so. And typically we're following up with links after the session takes place to this session's recording and then the other recordings as well. So before we get started, just a couple housekeeping items. We're in broadcast only mode. However, you can certainly ask questions by way of the questions section in the GoToWebinar, and once we do complete this session, and as I mentioned a couple times already, it is being recorded, so we'll post it out for access via our website. With that, I think I'd like to introduce Rob Yowzy. Rob is a solution architect here at Arrow Systems Integration, and Rob's been working in the technology and communications industry for quite some time, holding various positions around network and data network management, as well as advanced solutions consulting. Rob is going to provide us with an overview of remote monitoring and management as a service. And along with that, Rob's going to provide a demo of ArrowInsightRMM, which is Arrow SI's very own ITIL-based application, which is delivered as a service. So with that, Rob, thanks everyone for joining us, and Rob, you can take it from here, sir.
Very good. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the intro, and welcome everybody. We got a good sized group here joining us today, and we're glad that you're here. As Mark did say, feel free to ask questions as I go through this down in the chat window there. And we'll have a few minutes left at the end, hopefully, to review those questions. And if we don't get your answers to your questions on the webinar broadcast, we clearly will get back to you after the fact. So So let's get started. Remote monitoring and management, RMM as a service. Here's a little agenda here that I put together, what I'm going to try and cover today. I'm going to start out with a little definition of RMM, and then we're going to jump right into, as Mark said, our offering, which we call ArrowInsightRMM. I'll do a little bit of I'm a real picture kind of a guy, so we'll jump into some pictures. I love pictures, so we'll do a little architectural overview for you so you can kind of position this as a service and understand kind of how all the pieces come together. We'll cap that off with a brief demo. I'm not going to be able to get too deep into the application today. We'll save that for another session later in the year probably. And then when we get done with that, we'll have some questions and we'll get going from there. Okay. So, I kind of started out when I was putting this together going, how can I kind of ease into this? And I jumped out to Wikipedia, and as we do frequently on these kinds of webinars, and pulled a definition that they had out there for RMM, or what remote monitoring and management is. And I'm not going to read this whole thing for you. We'll leave it up there for a second. You'll notice that I did point out a few things here, though, that I kind of want to drill into, because I think they are components of what IT defines as remote monitoring and management, and that kind of distinguish the solution that we are going to be talking about today, our ArrowInsightRMM application, from other solutions that are out in the marketplace here. So, locally installed agents is a key piece that we will discuss in quite a bit of detail, actually. And observing behavior and managed devices and software for performance and diagnostic tasks. And then perform alerting and provide reports and dashboards. Obviously, no solution would be complete without some dashboards, some pretty dashboards and reports. And finally, kind of this panacea that everybody wants to get to, I've pointed out down that last bullet there, is one centralized console. Okay, so we'll jump into a little bit deeper here, at a little deeper level. We talk about locally installed agents. Usually with remote monitoring or monitoring applications in general, they require the installation of some kind of an agent, right? So whether it be in traditional IT applications, that sometimes is right on a server platform, there's an agent that gets installed there. Or in the case of, the one that's most of us with Avaya backgrounds don't stop to think about it, but in an Avaya Aura environment, Cell Gateway really is, that runs on the Avaya diagnostic server is really an agent, right? Its purpose in life is to collect alarm information and alerts and configuration information and pass it to Avaya's expert systems in the cloud, right? So that's kind of the way we want to think about it in this sense. The other piece with this, with agents, generally in a large enterprise, you've got multiple agents that get installed. So in a classic IT group in an enterprise, you probably have, the people in the network group have some kind of a monitoring application that has its agents that are either installed, on switches and routers, or, on a server that then talks to some piece of firmware or software on those switches and routers. The telecom group may have our tool or a different tool that they're using to monitor the telecom environment, to get VQM information, etc. The data center team definitely has some kind of monitoring application and an agent that's either installed locally on the servers or on its own server. So agents become very important in the remote monitoring process. Okay. Observe the behavior of managed devices, etc. Usually, this is done, with open protocols today and standard, interfaces. Generally, we're looking at SNMP here. If you're not familiar with that, simple network management protocol. A lot of agents, a lot of applications will pull syslogs off from servers and, interrogate them and looking for, key information in there to raise alarms or raise awareness if something's going wrong. But then you start thinking about, if we move back kind of the UC/CC space, we start talking about things like, on a VIA communication manager, or actually a lot of the traditional UC platforms, they really didn't get into the SNMP world immediately. They kind of had their own proprietary ways of doing alarming and monitoring and doing those kinds of things. So, we need to be able to tap into those on those platforms as well, okay? Perform alerting and provide reports and dashboards. Everybody loves dashboards, right? Everybody, when we think of remote monitoring solutions, everybody wants to have dashboards and they want to get alerts. And usually we do that through email or SMS, but not always. A lot of times we want to put, a nice, pretty, fancy dashboard with the red, yellow, green, and either in our help desk or in a NOC of some sort. So that becomes an important component of this as well. And the last bullet there becomes, kind of the panacea, right? An IT organization would love to be able to have one central single pane of glass that allows them to basically monitor their entire environment. We think we've got a pretty good handle on that right now. As you see when we get into ArrowInsightRMM, we can monitor, the majority of a customer's IT environment and produce alarms and allow to have that single pane of glass insight into an enterprise's network and into their infrastructure. So let's jump over here to Arrow Insight. Before I jump into the RMM portion of this, I kind of want to do a quick intro. Since I'm the first webinar we've done this year with this, what we call, branding, is what I would call it, branding and marketing. Arrow Insight is our own branding for our hosted services or our as-a-service offerings that we're going to be, using for branding all those applications that we're going to be offering out to our customers. And you'll see here on the second bullet, our initial offerings at this point include communications as a service. You can think UC/CC as a service. The RMM, which is what we're talking about today. Another one is device as a service, which you can think of as end-to-end lifecycle management of an enterprise's endpoint devices, from desktop PCs and notebooks to tablets and even smartphones, including disposal of those assets when they become end of life. So the other one here is ITSM, which is our white label branding for ServiceNow, which we're going to talk a lot about ITSM and ServiceNow as we go along, because it's closely related to remote monitoring and management. And the last one there is Internet of Things, which is such a popular topic today in IT and in the business world in general. And that really is our inclusion in with our parent company Arrow to cover this market, which we like to term sensor to sunset. And I'm sure we're going to have a presentation on that in a few weeks that you'll definitely want to join into that discussion for. So let's jump right into ArrowInsightRMM. What is it? Well, it's a software as a service, ITIL-based real-time monitoring and management application. So as I said before, you can look at this as a standalone remote monitoring tool, right? Integrated with in the second bullet there in our offering today, we have it integrated into our instance of ServiceNow for ITSM. And I kind of think of ITSM and remote monitoring as, remote monitoring is kind of the front end to, your ITSM solution. It's the part that does the monitoring of all your equipment and raises alarms into the ITSM solution. We're going to have a really good presentation on our ITSM application or our offering on March 8th when Russell Singer is going to do a webinar on that. So you're going to want to be sure to come back for the second half of this whole piece, which he's going to cover on that date. So you'll want to be back for that one. The third bullet there, again, that whole panacea of a single pane of glass, right, to monitor and manage all of our IT and UC/CC solutions or applications that we have running in our environment. And, we want to be able to easily provide, reports on all the elements that are in our environment, be it, from whatever manufacturer it is. In this case, the bullet here talks about Avaya, Cisco, NEC, and Microsoft, and you can think of those as UC/CC platforms, but also, obviously Cisco's heavy in the data space and in the data center, and Microsoft obviously is very heavy in the application side of the house too. So, the ability to get a view into those elements, regardless of whether they're IT based or UC based or CC based, that's the objective of the platform. And then obviously, again, back to the whole concept of we got to be able to get reports out of the system and dashboards that can kind of give us a view based upon what our customers want to see into what's going on in their environment. So we'll continue on here. So our solution, ArrowInsightRMM, we can deploy this in basically two flavors. We can run it on Linux, the agent that we're talking about that gets deployed in the environment. It can be deployed as either a Linux platform or a Windows platform. And then if you take that up to the next level, when we provide that to the customer, we can either provide that and install it on a bare metal server, or as in a virtualized either VMware or Hyper-V environment. And then the other thing that goes hand in hand with all this is we can either provide that hardware for you if you want us to, or we can just provide the software and you can install it in your environment on in one of those forms. This is the second bullet there, I think, is really important and key here. This is our intellectual property. This has been developed and maintained by us. It actually is the application that we have been using to monitor a lot of our customers' environments for the last 15 years. So what does that say? That says that, it's basically tried and true tested software at this point that we are using and an architecture that we're using to monitor our customers' environments. And it's been very successful for us. And we're basically just saying, wow, this is something that, we can offer out to our customers as a standalone solution if they don't have a solution for monitoring their environments. So, the other components of it, there's obviously an online portal that I'm going to walk you around here in a few minutes. That, with all the standard stuff that you'd expect in a monitoring tool, right? We've got all sorts of color-coded severity things, both in the widgets and in maps and forms and in tabular forms. There's, we can actually, back to the whole ITSM integration piece, as we do today, we push alarms and notifications up to our ITSM solution to raise incidents for follow-up. And we can do that in pretty much if you are an existing ServiceNow customer, we can push those alarms from our solution into your instance of ServiceNow, for example. Or if you have another standards-based open interfaced ITSM solution, and BMC Remedy comes to mind, we can push those alerts into your instance of Remedy, another ITSM solution, if you wanted to. So it doesn't have to be cloud-based either. Could be, obviously, could be premise-based, assuming that we set up all the right, security and integration to do that. So that becomes kind of important too. Let me get a quick drink here for you. Okay, so the other kind of last piece here is statistics, right? So being able to sample, the system does sample regularly all the equipment or all this applications that we are monitoring in the environment, pull all sorts of information from SNMP, MIBs, and traps to syslogs, and pulls that all together, and we get all sorts of, very good analytical information as to what the status of everything is in your network at the time that we're, in real time. So this slide talks a little bit about, so what does this do to help you with your UC and CC challenges and really IT challenges, right, in whole, right? And that comes down to, it allows you to get advanced diagnostics complete fault and alarm information, VQM information. VQM is, I kind of like to, as I've learned more and more about VQM these days, I keep finding out more how it's kind of like in the world when we talk about voice over IP, SIP isn't SIP for everybody, and everybody doesn't do SIP the same way, and everybody doesn't do H323 the same way. Everybody doesn't support voice quality monitoring the same way. So you're going to see when we get drilled down into the demo that, Avaya does it a little bit different from Microsoft, who does it a little bit different than Cisco. And consequently, the dashboards and the screens that you get and the quality and the totality of the reporting you get varies widely, actually, between the vendors. We can, we'll get into that a little bit deeper. The other piece here is, the reason that people put in these kinds of tools, obviously, is to make their IT people, their IT staff, both more productive, so they're not chasing, they can use these as diagnostic tools to get right to the root cause of problems and get them resolved quickly, which is, increases everybody's productivity, not only the IT folks, but your customers, right? It helps us to again, resolve those problems or alarms that come up. Hopefully we resolve them before anybody knows about it, but we get them resolved as quickly as possible. The other piece that this actually helps us to do is to be very proactive in our resolutions, so that we're, again, trying to find those issues and problems and nip them off before they turn into a larger problem. The other piece that's in here, the second to last bullet here, we talk about what we call the CMDB, or the Configuration Management Database. That's a fundamental basis of the ITIL framework, and an important part to any ITSM or remote monitoring solution that we put in place. You've got to have a good, solid configuration database so that you can keep tabs on all the applications and servers and whatever that you're monitoring in the environment. Okay. So the next slide here, again, in this, I think, kind of makes our ArrowInsightRMM application a little bit unique in the industry. You're going to see here that the applications and the systems that we can monitor with this tool today is pretty extensive already, and that goes back to that 15-year history of us using this tool for our own customers. You'll see that the items or the applications on this list are primarily UC and CC based, but you'll notice that things like Cisco's routers and switches that support MIB2 and syslogs we support those at this point. The former Avaya Ethernet switching products, which are now under Extreme, are in here. You've got things like UPS systems and cooling systems from Liebert and APC. We can monitor and alarm on those as well. And even obviously we've brought the SBCs into this from Ribbon, formerly Sonus, and obviously Avaya in here, and Oracle, formerly Audio Codes. So we've already built over 900 solutions into this offering that we can monitor and alarm on. So it's a pretty robust product at this point. So let me jump over to the next one. So the next piece we were going to go over, which I think is kind of fundamental to explain to everyone how this works, is I wanted to do a quick kind of an architectural overview for you. So I'm going to start at the bottom down here, and I'm going to put my cursor over here at the bottom, which is the RMM agent. So again, we were talking about agents at the beginning, and we talked about the fact that traditionally in an enterprise you've got multiple agents installed. I think the important thing, or kind of a differentiator for us in our solution, is we have a single agent that we install. We talked about what that requires, but the great thing about that is we've got the single agent, and it's talking protocol of choice by platform to all these various systems that are out there. So we not only support open tool sets like SNMP and syslogs, but we also support some more what I would call proprietary type things, like, for example, excuse me, doing secure login, secure terminal commands through SSH to an Avaya communication manager, for an example. So where we've been asked to do a little more deeper inspection into a system, we were able to support that. And again, it only takes that single remote agent that we're installing to do that. So the agent in this case, for those of you with an Avaya background, think of this as Sal again, and it serves basically a very similar function. The agent, once installed, has a list of all the applications and servers that it's going to be talking to, and it basically pulls all those servers on a regular basis, or the servers push information to it, and then periodically it stands up the VPN or a tunnel, a secure tunnel, back to our server in our data center and passes all of its metrics and VQM data and all that information. Any alarms obviously get pushed up to our server in our primary data center. The solution is built redundant, so we have a primary server in our one data center and a backup server with the complete database and all the metrics databases in a backup data center. So the agent basically goes to build that tunnel, and it attempts to build the tunnel and pass its information up to the primary data center. But for some reason, if that data center is not available, it will contact the secondary and complete its process there. The only other thing that really goes on here is if there's configuration changes or of any kind or anything that needs to be passed down to the agent, when that agent creates the tunnel to the server and passes all of its information up, then it asks if the server has any new configuration changes or anything it needs to pass down, and it gets passed down, and then it drops that secure connection. Okay, so we can obviously get a lot deeper into all of this with your security departments, because that always becomes a question, and we have a complete write-up on it that we can pass along to you if that becomes necessary to do that. So. And then obviously the last piece, two other pieces about the cloud side of this. On the cloud side of this, obviously up at the very top here is what I'm going to show you in a few minutes, which is our ArrowInsightRMM web portal, and that's your view into what's going on in your environment, and that obviously is tied into and can be tied into the dual data center model. From a database perspective, the last piece I kind of wanted to cover here was, remember we talked about the configuration management database. You can see that here in the diagram as the CMDB. That is, again, there's a primary and a fully synced one in our backup data center, and that's where we keep all of the configuration information of the platforms and applications that we're monitoring, is in that database. Separate from that, is all the metric data. So, when we take snapshots of current server statuses with, what the memory utilization is and the CPU is, and, all that wonderful stuff, as well as VQM data, voice quality data, as well as, all the alarm information, that all gets loaded into this metrics database. And, and we obviously keep that for historical purposes, because that becomes important too, if you want to go back and, start looking at trends and things like that. So, that's where all that information is kept. The next slide here, I kind of wanted to tie in just to kind of position it for everybody so you understand. So while you've got all these components going on to support the ArrowInsightRMM application, today with our existing maintenance customers, we then take and correlate alarm information and we pass it to our instance of ServiceNow, which we call ArrowInsightITSM. And then it does its correlation and creates incidents based upon that, so that they can, in this case, our IT staff or your IT staff could then execute and go find out what's going on or resolve issues. But the point that this shows our instance. I think the important thing to remember here is this is we pretty much can push those alarms to, as long as we've got an open interface that we can connect to your ITSM solution with, be it ServiceNow, be it BMC Remedy, be it, another third-party ITSM platform. As long as we've got those open interfaces, we can push those alarms to your solution. And then we become the remote monitoring solution that front ends the ITSM solution on the backside. So, so that kind of is that piece, the PowerPoint piece of this. What I'm going to do here right now is I'm going to jump over to my demo environment, which everybody should now be seeing on their screen. I'll give it a second to refresh, because sometimes that blows away the GoToWebinar. But so this is our demo environment. So my first thing that I always say is this is a demo environment. So there are some things that may go bump in the night, but we will definitely work our way through them. So here's the landing page. Obviously, we are secure. It is secured in here. You have to have a login, credentials to get into this application. And the first piece that I kind of want to show you about how to navigate here. Obviously, we've got pull downs over on the left side of the screen with different portions of the solution that you can go into. I'm going to start basically at the top, just because it's probably the best place to start. So this is basically all the alarms or alerts that have been raised today. Obviously, we can go back here historically, but this is today's alarms. And you'll see, we are color coded here. I'm not sure how it's showing up on your screen. On my screen, the major alarms come up in orange, minors are in yellow, and you can basically see that we got a few going on here today. One of the things that you can do here is if you hover over a particular alarm, and you can, if we've got an explanation loaded into the database, further explanation for it, you can click and get that. The thing that I kind of like here is you can click on this show device. Oops, I clicked on the wrong one. Let me go back to this one. You can click on show device, and what happens is basically what it goes right into the device. Okay. So you notice that you may or may not have noticed. Let me go back real quick. The issue with that major alarm was that the Windows Update service on this link backend SQL server had stopped. So if I go in here and go show device, I can actually go in and look at the services that are running on that server, right? This is all of them running on, and it's actually a Skype for Business server. We just haven't changed the name of it. You'll actually see here that the Windows Update service right here has stopped down here at the bottom. So the thing is, can you fix that here? No, but you could get a hold of your Microsoft team and make sure that somebody's aware that that stopped. If you were just using RMM tool as a standalone tool, you could then get a hold of your server folks and get that resolved. So that's just kind of an example, very high level here, and allows you to basically kind of monitor what's going on. You could throw this up in a NOC or a help desk, and somebody could keep an eye on it if you weren't integrated into, say, an ITSM backend. The next piece here is dashboards. Everybody loves dashboards. I love dashboards. So this is where we take standard reports, and again, this is just kind of a sample of standard reports here. I'm going to move this over so you get a little bit better view. Hopefully this is big enough on your screen and it's not an eye chart. Again, here's kind of a pie chart view of that alarm page that we were just on, and you could actually, if I clicked on this, it would then go to the alarm page, so you can drill down from here as well. We got a list of all the CM calls here today by MOS scores. If I click on this, it would go right into the VQM module. Similar, we're monitoring our Skype for Business environment, so I've got the calls that have just completed in my Skype for Business environment here, and I could click here and it would jump right into the VQM for Skype for Business. And we've got current calls here. So the important thing here is these are dashboards that you can create in your environment. I've got multiple that I've defined. Actually, here's another one that I created that I kind of call this my Avaya dashboard. This has got some different widgets built into it with different kinds of information being displayed. So this has got a server health widget for couple of different servers in my Avaya Red environment, my AES and my CMS. So if I click on these would again go down to the detail for that server. So that's, widgets. And, this is entirely widget based. You can move these around. You can bring other ones in. If we don't have something defined that's specific, that's something that you want to see in your environment, we can create it and make it available to you as well. So highly customizable, obviously. Let me go back up here. Maps. Oh, yeah, everybody loves maps, right? So we've actually integrated this into Google Maps as well. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit so you can see it a little better. But so basically within the configuration management database, we can put in GPS coordinate information, and for each of the applications or servers that we're monitoring. And what happens is when we do that, then that application will show up in this view as a drop pin. And then the other piece of this that is kind of nice is so I'm hovering over our Bloomington CM server right now. If for some reason there was an alarm on that server, either a minor or a major, the color of the pin would change from green to orange or green to yellow to orange. So you could see, you could put this up in your help desk or in a NOC and just leave it running. And as alerts are generated or being created in the system, you could see that come up on the screen, and somebody could swing over to this console and drill down into those and get more information. The other kind of map view we have here is more of a network map kind of a view, which we can see the data network pieces here. We can see location information and data network within a location. And again, this is complete drill down, right? I can drill down into my CM. If I want to go directly into one of these servers, I can. I'm gonna drill in here to our CES or to our AES server at this point because I want to show you a couple things. But basically, understand when I drill down in any of these screens I was just looking at to the server level, I'm going into the same thing as this server status menu. So I'm gonna drill in, going in from this direction right now. So here you get basic overview information on what's going on in this server. And you'll notice down here, our AES information is pretty good. It's pretty granular. It tells you that my ASI AI links are up and running and all sorts of, my licensing is all running. But you'll notice here that we've got a couple things that are in red. They say that they're offline. Well, if I go over to my services, you can see that the reason for that is we don't really have a license for that. So this, from a quick, point of view perspective to drill into what's going on in the environment, you can easily see what's going on here in your AES. And for some reason, if the links were down, you could go back over here and you'd see that the links were down in this. And then you can get a hold of somebody to go investigate to see what's going on there. Let's see. I'm going to jump over to capacity now. And I'm going to go specifically, in the interest of time, I'm going to jump into what I think a lot of people really like to see in this tool is our VQM modules. And we'll talk initially. You'll notice here that I've got several different manufacturers, UC solutions represented here. We basically can do all these and more, actually, but these are the ones that are loaded in my demo environment. I'm going to start with the Avaya, the red side of the house. So this is the Avaya CM. Very similar to probably other solutions that you've seen. And this is, I apologize if this is kind of an eye chart on your screens, but I'm going to actually drill into some of these calls right now, and I'm looking for one that has multiple hops. Here we go. So I think kind of a unique to our solution is not only do you get the tabular information, you can get down to detail, but it kind of gives you this graphical view of what this call, what was going on with this call. So obviously you can see the hop by hop count here of the call between the two endpoints, and if there was an issue in here, which there doesn't seem to be with this one, this is a pretty good call. It would quickly kind of stand out if there was issues with delay in the network going on here. And this is partly the way that our solution has been built to kind of display this graphically, which I think is really nice. But it's also kind of as a testament to the strength of the way that Avaya provides VQM data. You're going to see when we go into some of the other manufacturers' information that this is a lot bit better than some of the other solutions. You can also click on the detail here and see what actually happened with the call from a jitter and a packet loss perspective. And you can actually see the MOS score here. And obviously you can see as the jitter went up, the MOS score went down. So, very nice. And especially if you've got folks that maybe are responsible for at least taking triaging VQM issues, this is kind of a nice tool for them to start out with. And obviously if they need to get additional help from the network team, they can then contact them to get into that. One thing I will show you here real quick is, we do have, you can limit this list with all sorts of different tabs. If I click on MOS and I say I want to see all the calls with MOS scores below 3.1, which is not a good MOS score at all. Same thing. I'm obviously seeing all those calls that are coded as red, and I can jump in here and see we got significant delays. But if I go into the details on this particular call, you're going to see that the MOS score was all over the place, primarily because we were getting a lot of packet loss on this particular call. So obviously, you need to then go out and engage your network team to help with triaging that. But if you started seeing a whole lot of calls with bad MOS scores, obviously this is a great tool. Let me go back over here to capacity again and voice quality again. I'm going to just jump into the CS1000. It's very similar, as you would expect, to the Avaya CM. Again, hop by hop, you can go in and look at the calls. But I kind of wanted to show you the difference between Avaya and Cisco. So from this perspective, Cisco looks really good. Cisco does things a little bit differently, though. We got a MOS score assigned on both ends of the call, from one end and from the other. But when you go into the details here, it's much more of a tabular kind of a reporting perspective. We don't get the hop by hop count information that we do on the Avaya side. And there's technical reasons for that I'm not going to get into today. We'll probably hold that for another session. But one thing you do get, though, on the Cisco side is if you were doing video, you'd get not only stats on the call quality, but the video quality, which is kind of cool. Skype, I'm going to jump over there real quick because that is a lot different than the other ones. Same kind of a list, right? A couple things about Skype, though. Skype doesn't assign MOS scores till a call completes. So you'll see, and sometimes you get multiples. That's because the solution for Skype is basically all the data gets collected on the server, and then what we do is we go pull the corresponding reports when a call completes off from the server. So you get several reports. You get and a lot of very granular. And this, I know this is an eye chart. A lot of very granular information here on the startup of the call and the end of the call, not quite so much, but then in the call quality reports, you get a lot of detail here. So, it's just, just the different way that, as I said, different manufacturers' solutions, provide their voice quality information. The last one I wanted to show here real quick was we do get, you can actually get, and probably a lot of people are aware that you can get voice quality information out of your SBCs. In this case, this is a Sonos SBC. So this would be, most likely on your trunk calls, but you can get in here and actually get some pretty good detail on what happened with this particular call. The disconnect codes are important, especially a lot of large call centers that have big SBC environments. So, a lot of good granular information here that you can use to dig into what's going on in your environment. Let's see here. We did voice quality. I'm going to jump over, in the interest of time, I'm going to jump down to the notifications here under the change section real quick. I did, as I was saying at the beginning, one of the important things that we should be able to do out of these solutions, obviously, is notify people when something's going bump in the night. And you'll notice here, I just have a sample one that I set up. We have all sorts in here in this pull down, depending on what we're monitoring that are available to you. But in this case, I set up one for myself that if the MOS score for Skype for Business gets below 3.1 with at least 10 occurrences, and these are all selectable, that I want the system to send me an email. So, and it tells me here when the last notification was sent. So pretty basic, but if this is all you have, it's probably a step in the right direction for a lot of customers. The last piece here, a couple of last pieces I wanted to show. Here's that CMDB, so that the configuration management database. I can click on these and go into the details on all the different applications we're monitoring here, right? So that's that piece. Here's an important part that I really wanted to get to for Avaya, especially because our background is Avaya and primarily Avaya Aura and Red. We've done some really kind of deep inspection into the communication manager. So this is kind of a deep dive into the CM here. Obviously, it comes up and it shows you all your cabinets, and you can hover over these and see that this is a digital line, for example, and there's 24 ports on it, 9 of which are being used. Kind of a nice, at a glance kind of a thing. That's really nice to look at, and obviously tabular here. So here's our servers, IP addresses, that kind of information. Pretty basic. Board counts, list config all. How many of us have been doing that for years? Here's basically your list config all in a nice little spreadsheet form. And obviously this gets updated, based upon how you want it configured, but pretty much on a daily basis we update this. So this would be the current as of last night. A couple things that are the kind of unique though that I think that we do that are really kind of nice here. So here's your network regions. Yeah, I can do list network region on my system pretty easily, no big deal, right? Well, one thing you don't get is again, I'm a picture kind of guy, so wow, here's kind of a pictorial view of the network regions on our CM. And if you notice, if I hover over these, I get to see the codecs that are going on here in each of my different network regions, which is kind of a nice thing to do. And to kind of look at things at a glance as they were configured as of last night. But one of the things that I really think is powerful here is this: we can actually export this and put it into a Visio drawing so that you can put it in your run books and keep documentation of what's going on with your network regions. So that's, I think, is really kind of a nice tool to have available to you. Similarly, another one that I think is really kind of cool. Here's our vectors in our system. So obviously, again, tabular kind of a view. I got a list of all the different vectors that are in my system, right? But we do some analysis on those vectors. For example, vectors that jump to a non-existing vector. Here's one that we might want to go look at sometime and figure out what's going on with it, right? We don't have any vectors with no defined steps. That's kind of nice. Keep the system clean, right? Vectors that jumps back to itself. We don't have any of those either, which is kind of good from a development perspective. But here's where I think the solution gets a lot of power. If I click on a vector, I can actually see all the different vector steps, what's going on in those vectors. And if it's a vector that jumps to another vector, I can click on that and it'll jump over to the next vector. So, really kind of a nice, if you've got maybe an issue you're working on in your call center and you're trying to diagnose it, and you can get in here and start with the VDNs, which is another tab over here. I won't go there right now, but you can start with the VDN, find out the vector, and kind of start stepping through here and use this as a tool to diagnose stuff that's going on, or look, if you're thinking about speccing changes to your call flows, you can do that here. Again, really nice tool. You notice up here at the very top, you can export these either into a spreadsheet form or into a Visio form for your documentation, which, when I was a customer doing this work about 10 years ago, I would have killed to have this. Really nice tool to be able to do all that stuff. Oops, excuse me, I jumped over here by mistake. So, a lot of nice information in here, a lot of different tabs. You can actually look at your phones and, current versions of your software here as well. So, really nice, very straightforward information here, maybe for folks that, want to do some quick diagnosing things, or, export some things out into spreadsheets for some analysis or for reporting purposes. So the last thing I want to show everybody real quick is we've added in a module here, and we only ran this against our CM at this point, but public key certificates have been for the last couple of years have caused a lot of heartburn for a lot of customers. So we actually put a module in here that actually pulls the existing certificates out of the CM, and we can pretty much do this on a lot of different things. We do it in Skype for Business. We do it for all the Avaya platforms. So you can actually get in here and look at your certificates and keep an eye on them, and know when they're going to be expired, just get information on them. So it's kind of a nice tool to have in place, for managing your certificates. Let's see here. I think that was the last piece I had at this point. So we're ready for some Q&A here. Mark, are you still on the line? Do we have questions? Do we not have questions? What's going on?
I am still on the line, and we do have a handful of questions that I think would be good to go through here. What do we have? About 9 minutes. So
about 9 minutes.
Work out pretty well. Yeah. So a couple questions from the audience. One that I think is pretty important and on the very likely on the top of a lot of individuals' minds is: do I still, in an Avaya environment, am I still required to have SAL?
Yeah. So in an Avaya environment, for maintenance purposes, SAL would still be in place. Now, understand, especially if you've got Avaya maintenance or if you've got partner maintenance, the alarms that are going through SAL would be going directly to your partner. So if let's just take the example of ArrowSI. If ArrowSI was doing your maintenance, we would be getting your alarms from your SAL would get routed to us, and actually ultimately they end up in our instance of ServiceNow, and that's where we actually get them and then triage them from there. If you wanted to put in the RMM solution as kind of a wraparound to do other things in your environment, that's where I kind of see the value of this, is if you want that, that documentation, that CMDB database of your Avaya environment or other things that are in your environment. So if you have, say you had Skype for Business or you had Cisco in your environment, you could put RMM in and start managing and monitoring all those things, and they could all be coming into the centralized, single pane of glass in the RMM tool. And or if you had maintenance with us, we could actually have those, we could build contracts to bring those alarms into our ServiceNow, and then, and then either we can triage them or we can, get them to you to be triaged as well. So good question.
Certainly. Another question along the lines of survivability and kind of high availability. I notice we have, we have a dual data center arrangement with primary and secondary for the RMM servers. At the agent level, is there a duplication option to have, say, either a primary and a standby or an active-active arrangement at the agent level?
There is, and we can do that, especially like if a customer has a dual data center arrangement, we can do that. That can be set up.
That's awesome. Let me move through a couple other questions here, just make sure we're doing good on time, which we are. From a reports perspective, you shared some reports that were already built out in the system. Is there a way for customers and users to access, say, a report generator tool that allows them to create and customize their own reports?
That is something we've had as a request. So in the tool today, we can take requirements for those reports and build them for you. We do not have a customer, like their own report generator today, but that's something that's in the pipeline for us to add into the tool set. So we will be able to do that at some point. I think the intent as well, if you remember back to the dashboards, the intent would also be to allow you to take those reports and create widgets of them and put them into the dashboard as well. If you think about it, that's kind of how that all relates. So yeah, it's a roadmap item actually at this point.
And another question that popped up when you mentioned the dashboard. So I know you mentioned, a number of data products and data manufacturers. I'm pretty sure that includes the former Avaya data portfolio, which is now Extreme, correct?
Correct. Yep. And I actually rebranded. I redid that in the slide deck. But yes, the products that were in the slide were actually the Avaya products that are now part of Extreme. But we also have the MIBs and everything for the Extreme products, the native quote unquote Extreme products as well. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Then the second to the last question is there a limit to the number of devices which an agent can monitor?
Good question. My understanding is not at this point, but you have to think that at some point there's going to be some kind of a limit, and again, the solution's built so we can put multiple agents in the environment if we need to. So, I don't know of a limit, but I'll take that as a takeaway to see if I can find out if we do have a known limit at this point.
The last one, I don't know if we're prepared to share information around the kind of pricing and solution configuration, but if you can, there was a question around the pricing model and if it's per device. Part of me says if we don't have that information readily available, we can certainly get you aligned with our account team to help look at your specific environment. But I don't know if there's a standard pricing model, Rob, that you're able to share at this point.
It's understand that it's as a service, right? So it's a right to use basically. And on the UC platforms, it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of based upon what your right to use is. So on the CM, for example, how many right to use do you have on your CM? Okay, and it's built as a one-to-one. On the other platforms, it gets a little bit more complicated, and we're still kind of wrestling with that, to be honest. So, like if you wanted to do data switches or something like that, there is a formula for it, but it's not really ready for prime time right now. We're working on that. So.
Certainly, and another thing to keep for the audience to know there is we have a team of specialists that are aligned with our account managers to assist in looking at your specific environment, in engaging to help bring that as a service solution pricing together for you. So just kind of a note there as to engagement model, and we'll follow up from this discussion. I believe Rob will have his contact information. You can certainly reach to Rob, and we'll get you connected with the right resources, or certainly you can, if you know who your account support manager is, you can reach out to that individual directly.
Yep. And actually, that was a great lead into the last slide. Unless you had another question. Did you have another question?
Don't have any other questions. Awesome.
So first of all, with the last slide here, thanks for joining us today. Obviously, we're very happy that you could join, and absolutely, once this is going to be posted on our website, and you should get an email indicating when it's been posted and how to get to it. If you have further questions, or if there's, obviously if there was questions that we got that we didn't get a chance to answer, we will definitely be getting back to you. But if you have further questions, by all means, contact your ArrowSI account exec, or you can contact me. My contact information is on the slide right now, and we'd be happy to work with you on whatever it is you're looking to get answers to. I'm going to put a shameless plug in for my colleagues and their webinars that are upcoming. As Mark indicated, there is no webinar next week, which is the 15th, because we'll be at our sales conference. But there is a list here of the upcoming topics going out to mid-April at this point. So we've got a really, I think, exciting series here going on, and we look forward to having you join us for those. So, Mark, any other closing comments from you?
No, that's it. Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. Had a great turnout, and keep your eyes open for the link to the playback. And again, feel free to share that amongst your colleagues. Appreciate your time.
Very good. Thanks.